Welcome back to another episode of Gut Talk, or if you are new here, hi, welcome. We are so happy to have you. My name is Jenna, and I host this podcast with my older sister, Jill. And today, we are diving deep into stool testing. This is quite often asked from us to talk about it, so we have brought on the right people. We have Dr. Lahnor Powell, who is a Genova Diagnostics representative. This is in partnership with Genova Diagnostics, one of the leading gut health tests in the game. So we are so excited to dive into it with you. We will be talking about what stool testing is, what it actually shows, how to understand your results, and how they can completely change the way you approach gut health. And as I said, we are joined by Dr. Lahnor Powell, a naturopathic doctor and public health expert who works closely with Genova Diagnostics, the company behind some of the most advanced stool and functional lab testing out there. In this episode, we are breaking down the entire process, from what happens when you take a stool test to what your results can reveal about inflammation, bloating, and gut bacteria diversity. We'll even go over our own results and talk through what they mean, how you can interpret the results, and what practical steps you can take if you are dealing with gut issues. And if you are listening to this episode right now, you might actually want to go watch on YouTube because we will be showing the stool test on the screen so you can follow along. So whether you're struggling with bloating, inflammation, or just curious about what's really going on in your gut microbiome, this episode will help you understand how stool testing can give you answers. And if you want to run your own test, you can order directly from Genova Connect and use code GUTTALK10 for 10% off your order. The link for the test will be in the show notes. It is such an amazing opportunity, and we are so excited to bring you guys this episode. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Lahnor on Gut Talk. We're so excited to have you on today. Obviously, you do so much. You wear so many different hats, but what we want to talk to you today is about stool testing and how we can support our gut health. Jill and I took the GI effects test with Genova Diagnostics, and we have a lot that we need to get into. I would like to say specifically on Jill's end.
No, don't speak for me. Speak for yourself. Okay.
Speak for your own poop.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I'll speak for my own poop.
Leave my shit alone and focus on yours.
Let's start this off and talk to our community. Let's hear a little bit more about you and how you got into this space. You're a naturopathic doctor, master's in public health too. And so if you can just explain a little bit more to who you are and how you found yourself in this space.
So I always knew that I wanted to be a part of medicine in some way, in some fashion, some form. Ever since being a young child, I've always been really obsessed with the body and how it works and just health in general. So when it was time to pick a career, right, when you're in like high school, I just figured, let me just be a doctor. That would just align perfectly with everything that I'm wanting to do. So going throughout college and getting all the prereqs and the courses, running track and field full time, doing, theater and music and just other random little things like that, I took advantage of various programs that were made available to me where I was able to do some shadowing at a traditional hospital. And it really rattled me. It rattled me in a way that made me want to still help people, but help people through a different route, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Being in the ER, you're already at a point where it's kind of really late in the progression of that disease or that acute injury. And I wanted to kind of be on the forefront to act more in the prevention space. So that's where I started to learn about other forms of medicine, and just flipping through a book one day, I found naturopathic medicine. And so I went that route, did my 4 years there. And then after that, just really finding my flow. I really love working with women. I love working with babies, and really wanted to also combine my love for research, because after naturopathic school, I went and got my master's of public health. So I wanted to combine my love of research with the medicine. And that's how I came about with Genova, because it allowed me the space to be able to help clinicians, especially my women, like the women patients and the babies, but also integrate my slight obsession, which is probably kind of weird, but for research and just the data and the numbers.
What was the biggest difference between going to a naturopathic school and going to a traditional medical program?
So that's a really good question. I also had friends who I grew up with who went through their traditional medical program, and our first 2 years looked exactly the same.
Okay.
We were in all of the cardiology, the biology, the physiology, the anatomy. We were in, microbiology labs. We were learning about the citric acid cycle and how we make ATP. So the first 2 years were extremely similar, even to the point where we used similar materials to study for our step 1 boards. Where it became a little bit different is how we approach different processes or diseases. So, for example, my colleagues on the medical traditional route would approach, let's say, fatigue through: do you have adequate iron? Do you have adequate thyroid hormone? Is there a problem with your hormones, right? Or are you chronically stressed out? Are you sleeping well? We might approach, from my standpoint, fatigue. Of course, we're still looking at those same things, but we're going to approach it also from: are there any environmental triggers? What about your sleep? Just getting 8 hours of sleep. Like, what's the quality of your sleep? Okay, what about your cortisol? We might start asking more questions and doing more investigation about things like that. And how does your diet contribute to a lack of your sleep or a lack of your energy, right? So we approach the same topics, but just from different standpoints.
Sure. So you got out of school, then you went into public health because you love the research. And then what made you say, okay, there are other tests already in the market, but I'm going to create Genova because I need different stats?
Yeah. So I was actually introduced to, we call it functional testing. I was introduced to it throughout my training as a naturopathic doctor. So I was already very much so familiar with different laboratories and different testing. I went with Genova because, well, there's a few things. Number one, the company has been in existence. It's probably one of the oldest functional laboratory companies that has been in existence.
Oh, wow.
And I feel with age, like fine wine, you develop differently.
Seriously.
So that was a very big thing for me. The other thing was, throughout my education and even throughout, my professional life, I've seen labs come and go, and Genova has just been a steady. I've seen tests come and I've seen tests gain great hype and then they go, right? Because of various issues, whether it's validity or the ability to maintain all the strict requirements and regulations that a lab actually has to maintain. So there's a lot of different nuances that goes about with having a laboratory company, like in being with a laboratory company. And I feel that Genova has just been able to just be solid in those aspects.
So now today, what does your week to week look like?
So my week to week, what it looks like today is, with Genova, I am on the phone and I help guide clinicians in understanding how to read these tests.
Okay.
A lot of times it's really easy to see one marker is high, this is what I do, but how do you create a story that aligns with what the patient has going on? So that's what I help to do. I help to create a story with the biomarkers, with the patient's clinical symptoms, with the medication supplements they're already taking, and kind of help guide them toward that ideal health or vitality, I guess we can say.
Okay.
That's professionally what I look like on a day-to-day basis, answering emails and different things like that, doing presentations and podcasts and speaking with really awesome people as well. But on a personal level, I am a mother of 3. So my mornings start very early and getting 3.
I mean, you really do it all. Oh my gosh.
And then my
What a
afternoons
resume.
look like sports, right? So cooking
Wow.
and then sports. And so my life is very busy. I'm also married to a gentleman who I personally think is pretty cool. And he likes to build houses and do fancy stuff like that. So,
wow.
I'm also the wife, the support system for that as well. So there's a lot going on personally, but also professionally, but wouldn't change it for a thing.
So
Badass. I love
this
it.
is off topic, but I need to know, knowing what you know, constantly guiding professionals on stool tests and what to look for. Are you testing your kids' stool? Like, are you putting them through these tests?
Do I torture my kids? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? Come on now. So I didn't test them less than 2 years of age because I was still breastfeeding. There's still a lot of interplay between my body, my immune system, my microbiome, and theirs. So when my eldest daughter had eczema issues, I actually tested myself. Because we were still breastfeeding at that moment. And I figured out what foods was I reacting to. I changed my diet and her eczema kind of issues kind of cleared up. But then after that, I have my kids do urine collection to see their amino acids. And yes, I have them, do food sensitivity testings after their immune system has developed and, into their own little thing. Like, now what do you react to? That way I can make cooking really difficult for myself.
Right.
Yeah, just to throw
everyone gets a different home cooked meal.
Right. Okay, so you're joking, but seriously.
Oh no.
No,
really?
It's intense. So my eldest daughter, she can't do certain fruits. My middle son, he can't do dairy, and my youngest son cannot do potato families, and I can't do potato families. So cooking has just been a really fun challenge.
I'm sorry about the potato families. Potato is really key to my happiness throughout the week, I think.
So keep in mind, all of your potato chip alternatives have potato starch in them.
Oh, so those are just out.
Your quinoa chips.
Wow.
Oh, that's tough. Yeah, that makes snacking harder for sure.
Yeah, it makes snacking really hard and really sad sometimes.
Yeah, it's like, okay, carrot chips for you.
Chocolate? Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I love it.
So obviously with us being Gut Talk, especially early on as we started to build this platform, we talked a lot about your bowel movements and the importance of stool testing. And what we normally get the reaction is, I'm not pooping in a container, or I'm not pooping for someone else to look at, right? What's your argument? If you're talking to a friend or someone you meet somewhere and they're like, I don't know if I should test my stool, that's gross. Like, what's your pitch?
Get over it. Honestly, because get over it, right? Yeah. Because from your stool sample, we can get so much information about your digestion and your absorption. I cannot do it with a blood test. I mean, we can maybe do some imaging, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to be comfortable, right? So it's like a hot dog container. Sorry if I just messed up the word hot dogs for you. But you urinate, you clean it up, and then you just slip it under your bottom, past your bowel movement. You're not touching and playing with the stool. On the top of every tube, there's like a pooper scooper. Okay, that's not the technical name, but it's like a little shovel. And you just kind of take a sample of your stool from all different angles, break it inside out and everything like that. Close up the tube, shake it up a little bit, send it back in. There you go, right?
And I will say, it was gross, but it's gross for less than 5 minutes.
Right.
Then
you get over it.
You move on with your life. Now we'll get to this in a little bit, but unfortunately, as Jenna indicated earlier, my results came back and there's work to do, right? So I might have to do that 5 minutes again at some point, and probably should. But I think the other question that I have around the testing is, what makes Genova's stool test and testing in general different than some of the other tests available to the public?
Yeah, it's our ability to utilize multiple different technologies.
Mm.
Again, we've been around for a long time. We have a pretty big lab that is able to employ several different testing techniques like chromatography and culture and sensitivity. So that's what really stands us apart. The way that we organize our tests is also, I think, how we are kind of set apart as well, in terms of it's organized into a DIG framework. So D is for digestion absorption, the I is for inflammation immunology, and the G is for gut microbiome, where we do culture for yeast and we look for parasites and we look at the metabolites or byproducts of your gut bacteria. And then I'd say the third thing would really be the actual report that's printed. It's done in a colorful way so that it encourages interaction between the clinician and the patient. So it's not your typical black and white, high, low, little red numbers here or there. It actually encourages that communication. And with the functional scores we have on the test, you can actually track your progress over time.
Yeah. I
And
love it.
so when you complete the test, do you get to meet with a clinician? Is that a part of the package?
So that's a great question. So when the test is ordered through Genova Connect, you get your results back, and then we do suggest that you schedule an appointment with your practitioner. Now, if
Okay.
you don't have a practitioner, then you can always go on our website and you can do a practitioner search,
Mm.
and you'll be able to find practitioners who are Genova users who are in your area, and that you might be able to set up a consult or kind of like communications with. But we always do provide a support guide. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not just one number, high, low, what do I do? You want to look for patterns. So utilizing a clinician who has training and understanding these tests, I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah, and this test that we're talking about, and I'll give a whole spiel about it before we get into the episode that everyone will have already heard, but it's cool because you can order it yourself, right? Like, because, and everyone who's listening to this, we are doing this. Jill and I did this in partnership with Genova because we have gotten so much feedback about stool testing, especially when we post our own experience about how much it impacted us and helped us in our health journey and is still helping us in our health journey. So the ability to go in and order it yourself is huge because you can start off by being your own health advocate by saying, listen, I'm going to go and take my issues and get them under control by going and being, either if it's proactive, amazing. Maybe it is a little reactive based on the symptoms that you're feeling. It's such an awesome thing that has not been around for a very long time, right? Like you've always had to go through a practitioner for the most part to get like a very good test done. Yeah, there's at-home tests here and there, but this one's really good, like Dr. Lahnor is explaining. So that's the beauty of this. And that's why really the core of why we're having this podcast today is like, listen, we're going to give you all the information. Jill and I are going to go over or Dr. Lahnor is going to go over which is going to be really interesting, but it's to break it down so that you can go and be your own advocate in order for yourself. Just to give you guys that background.
I'm so curious, just like for my own interest, as far as with your kids, how not strict is the word, but I think about this a lot. Like I'm single. I would love kids one day, but not now. But I always think about like, how will I balance giving them food that's fun, that they see their friends eating, with everything that I know about health? What's that look like? Is it just kind of like learn as you go?
You take your wins where you can,
Mm-hmm.
and you take your losses gracefully.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids still eat your traditional kind of not as healthy foods that you get from the grocery store, the inner aisle stuff,
Yeah.
But for dinner, I'm cooking,
Right.
I'm cooking a lot of times from scratch or near scratch.
Right.
I'm tailoring what they're eating. And my one middle son, who does not do really great with vegetables outside of salad, is on a coleslaw kick. Honey, we've had coleslaw for the past 4 weeks. Hey, I got coleslaw in my fridge now. You know what I mean? And my youngest son is on this like anti-vegetable thing right now.
Okay.
Except green beans. Ma'am, every single week we have green beans. Oh, you know what I mean? So some parents are, some kids are just wonderful and their palate is very diverse. And I think it does start in the womb. So if you don't introduce a lot of those foods in the womb, they're going to be like kind of freaked out by it. Get them involved with cooking, get them involved with growing a garden. And that really helps out. Take them to the farmer's market and tell them to eat the plant that's on the table, My kid asked me the other day, they were like, Mom, what is this? I was like, oh, it's a dandelion. Oh, really? I was like, it's actually good for your body. You should eat it one day. So I was like, let's bring it home and let's go ahead, let it dry out. And I'll sprinkle some on top of your salad, but it's bitter, just exploring. That's all what it's about. And again, I'm not going to sit here and stress myself out about something like that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
But I'm a little bit more strict with certain things, like the middle son and dairy. It causes him diarrhea and really sour farts. So it's like, I'm going to be a little bit more strict with this one.
Sure.
So I found plant-based options to make my creamy pasta dishes. Now we use a plant-based cream cheese.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
No, you modify.
Yeah. And it's cool that you have the tools. I know, like when we were growing up, we had pretty upset stomachs, but it was Tums, keep a Tums in your backpack. And if your stomach hurts, like go to the nurse or eat the Tums or both. Like
for me, it was Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah, exactly.
I might be a little bit older than you.
No, our dad was like a big Tums guy. Like our dad was like, should have had stock in Tums. Like you never
we always had packs too. We always had packs in the house of Tums, Alka-Seltzer, and Vicks.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
So what we want to do is we want to go over our stool tests. And if you guys are watching this, you'll be able to see them. And if you are listening, Dr. Lahnor hopefully will explain it in a way that will make sense for someone who's never seen one of these tests before. So Jill, do you want to start with you? My issues are pretty minimal, I will say, I think. So I'm kidding.
I don't know.
Yeah. I actually don't know entirely. So I read the GI map. I don't have a lot of experience with Genova, so this will be really interesting to hear.
Let me just
Dr. Lahnor, can you see this okay?
I can see it.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful.
I love how you talk about stool testing. Beauty.
And also, Dr. Lahnor, you don't have to be that nice to me because I see some red and yellow. I know there's some stuff that needs to be worked on.
Absolutely. So again, the test is broken down into a DIG framework. Okay. So the first pillar, maldigestion, that's the D. The I, or inflammation immunology, is the second pillar that says inflammation, where again, you have 0, and 0 means you have a low need for support. So basically, when we looked for digestion, when we looked at your ability to secrete pancreatic enzymes, which pancreas is an organ that is able to secrete enzymes to break down all of your macronutrients, your carbs, your proteins, and your fats. We also look at how well you're breaking your fats down. How well are you breaking your proteins down? And again, you're doing a really good job there. So that's a moment of celebration. Now, under the inflammation, the calprotectin, that's a marker of neutrophil inflammation, where eosinophil protein X is a marker of eosinophil inflammation. So whenever I think about the word inflammation, I just remember, like, what does it look like when you fall down and you sprain your ankle? It gets swollen, it gets hot, it's irritated, and it's painful. Same thing with inflammation that can happen within your GI tract. Those are similar symptoms we'll be looking for as well. And then with your secretory IgA, that marker is more about your immune system. How well is your body able to protect you, to defend you from bad bugs or anything else like that? And then we also look at occult blood under inflammation, and that's just another inflammation sign. So again, in those first two pillars, you're doing amazing, and you can give yourself a round of applause, a pat on the back, whatever you need to do. Now is when we're going to talk a little bit more. So the G part is the gut microbiome. It's subdivided into 3 groupings. We have dysbiosis. So dysbiosis just means an imbalance in the good. We also look at metabolic imbalance. Metabolic just are the metabolites or byproducts made from the bacteria. And then lastly, infection. So do you have a parasite? Do you have a bad bug present that could be also causing symptoms? So this is where we need to do a little bit more work here.
Mm-hmm.
For the dysbiosis, you have a score of a 7, and a 7 means that there is a high need for support. And the metabolic imbalance, you have a 6, which means that we have a moderate need for support. Whereas infection, a 0, that's good.
Woo.
It's either like you're doing great or you're doing terrible. There's really no in between, it seems.
There's two extremes in life.
Right.
There's no middle ground. Yeah,
Now,
but when I look at this test, honestly, it doesn't look that bad. This is probably one of the better tests that I traditionally see, where
Okay.
all we have to work on is just the microbiome.
yeah.
Right. So I think that's something that should be really encouraging to you.
Okay.
And when you go down onto that front page under the pillars, we have the biomarkers, and below that are therapeutic support options. Now, in that section, you just pick the 1, the 2, or all 5 of them that might be applicable to your results. Now, on the page,
In which page?
On page 1 at the bottom.
Oh, okay, got it.
Now, on the page that you're currently on, at the very top of page 2, now we're looking at your abundance. We're trying to see if you have more or less of the commensals compared to the healthy cohort. And you can see with the commensal abundance, your result is hanging out a little bit close to that negative 10% mark.
And it says deficiency, so it's almost like I'm not giving it enough.
Exactly. So we want to
Okay.
support the commensals. Now, what would cause us to have more of a deficient picture in our commensals? Great question. Standard American diet, antibiotics, antimicrobial agents, colonics, colonoscopies. If we had a prior history of restrictive type eating disorders, these are all things that can contribute to your commensals being less abundant.
And it's interesting because none of those things really identify with me. Although what I will say is that I'm a very simple chef. So maybe I just need to spruce things up a little bit to get more of that good stuff in my diet. Cause like I'm very happy with very simple meals.
So that is 100% something that when I previewed your report that I noticed.
Got it. Okay.
One of the things I really wanted to encourage looking through your report was variety. Eat those foods that are in season. Eat the colorful foods.
An unfortunate thing about me is if I love it, kind of like you were saying with your son who loves coleslaw, like I just want it every meal for 4 weeks. Like I don't want diversity.
It's
So
true.
I will challenge myself there for sure.
What I think would be helpful too, just side note, is to Jill, maybe share a couple symptoms you experience as well.
Yeah, well, I wanted to identify because it's under dysbiosis where I have a 7. It says there are some therapeutic support options, and one says consider SIBO testing. I'm like almost sure I have SIBO because after I eat, I'm sorry, this is so gross to everyone listening, but we don't believe in TMI here. I burp a ton and I can taste the food that I just ate, which I'm pretty sure is like a pretty big SIBO sign. And so would you, if you were consulting with me, would you recommend that I then go see like a GI doctor for SIBO testing?
Great question. So with SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, it's not a issue with bad bugs. It's just bugs in the wrong place. So the bugs that should normally be in the large bowel are now in the small intestines. And their job is the same, which is to ferment the food you eat. So that's why we get a lot of gas, abdominal discomfort, bloating. That's worse after you eat. So that's kind of the hallmark of SIBO. It's worse after you eat. And in those cases, yeah, you want to make sure you have a conversation with your practitioner, or you can go to a GI doc. I know at Genova, not through the Genova Connect, but we also offer SIBO testing. So that could be something that you pair out with your clinician to see, like, is this something that I have?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I feel like that's probably going to be my next step because I feel like my symptoms, along with diversifying my diet, maybe we'll make some fun like social media posts about like how I'm going to diversify because that to me really does feel like a chore, but I think my test results are staring me straight in the face and saying like, this is what you need, girlfriend. So I'm
Well, if
listening.
you do green cabbage one day, how about the next week you get a purple cabbage?
Okay.
Right. So if you do orange carrots this week, how about next week you grab purple carrots and yellow carrots?
Okay. I haven't had any of those things in a very long time. So
So
literally
start
any of
by
those would
buying
do.
carrots and cabbage.
There we go.
Are there any ones off the top of your head that you recommend as far as diversifying other than cabbage and carrots that are like easy grabs?
Yeah. So when you go to the and this is a little bit hard because we kind of live in this like Instacart society where we're
I
able
use
to
it.
open up our phone and order the same thing over and over again.
I'll be called out.
Right. I'm
Right.
guilty too.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm guilty too. So it's really about trying to pick items that you don't get on a consistent basis. So if you do like green beans and broccoli one week, switch it up to something else the next week. Make sure we have some good legumes. If you do black beans one week, let's do a different type of beans, like maybe like a pinto or something like that the next week. Play around with your nuts and play around with your seeds. Go to a farmer's market, see what they have as produce in season, and pick up something new, right? So that's kind of how I like to encourage adding the variety.
Yeah, I
Cool.
love that. Okay, that doesn't feel that hard.
It's not.
Yeah. Is there anything else we want
We'll
to?
keep scrolling down a little bit more
Okay.
and let's see.
Yeah, let's
Thank
go
you.
back to page 2 at the bottom because we did the
Perfect.
abundance on the top of page 2. So let's go to the bottom where we have that zone 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, great. Okay, perfect. Okay, so talk to me. What is the inflammation zones I'm looking at?
Yeah, so the inflammation associated dysbiosis and the methane dysbiosis score, those were actually created looking at individuals who have not only methane SIBO, but who also have inflammatory bowel disease like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And we looked at changes in their metabolites or the byproducts of the bacteria. Plus, we also looked at changes in the actual bacteria. And we're trying to see how do you align with folks who have those conditions versus those who are healthy. Now, when the inflammation associated dysbiosis is high, we want to check your inflammatory markers to make sure there's no issues that we might need to refer to a GI doc for. But if the inflammatory markers are normal, then this marker being high just says, again, your commensals are not balanced. And for the methane score, same idea. If this is elevated, we want to think, do you have those symptoms of SIBO, which are after I eat, I get a lot of gas and bloating, abdominal discomfort, nausea. Some people get a little bit of vomiting as well. And if we have those symptoms, then we need to go the next step and investigate or treat for SIBO. But in this case, the methane SIBO marker is normal. It doesn't mean you don't have SIBO. It just means it's less likely to be a methane only SIBO. There's many other types, don't worry.
Yeah.
And then we have this zone 1, 2, 3, 4. And based on your inflammation on the x-axis and on the y-axis, the immune or the methane score, we put you into a zone, which we have a write-up on the right-hand side about each of those categories.
Okay.
Cool.
Got it.
On the next page, we're also just trying to better understand the commensals, right? Because you can look at one commensal, it can be high for one person and low for another person, but what does it mean overall? Show me some patterns. So that's what we're also doing here on page 3, where we're looking at the balance. So on the x-axis is reference variance score. So out of the measured bacteria, how many are out of balance? And then for the y-axis healthy pattern continuum, the higher the number, the more you correspond or correlate with healthy individuals. So ideally, your results should be on the upper left side.
Got it. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I would say they're on the lower middle side, so we have some work to do. But
Some work to do. Yeah.
Yeah,
And what really
exactly.
impacts it is, again, we're going back to your diet. We're going back to the pre-probiotics and also lifestyle, believe it or not. Exercise, sleep, stress management, all these things impact your commensals.
yeah, I believe that.
And that's such a good note because you were talking about food a lot. I think one thing that people don't realize and what Jill and I didn't realize for so many years is how much the lifestyle impacts your gut, right? Like it's like, oh, well, I don't eat sauerkraut or kimchi, so my good gut bacteria, no wonder it's being impacted. But you said sleep you said stress.
Mhm.
And those are two things I think Jill and I neglected for a long time were, our stress levels, which, were obviously impacting us. So thank you for sharing that. And we can go a little bit more into at the end, like things that people can start doing to start supporting their gut microbiome. But everyone listening, just note those things.
Absolutely. Here on the bottom of page 3, we also have this relative commensal abundance. And we're looking at where you fall compared to the healthy cohort for each of the different phylums. And on the right-hand side, we tell you a little bit more about the individual phylums. Like certain ones do better with plant-based, or if you eat high sugars, that phylum will be higher than others. Some might be related to more inflammation. So that write-up is on the right-hand side here. But compared to the healthy cohort, you're doing pretty well, but we do see a little bit of a left shift. You see that? Where some of the commensals are not as abundant or robust as we'd like them to be. And again, it's going to fall back to the diet. And if you so choose, we can also consider probiotics, but let's start with the diet.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
So the next page is where, again, you'll really see that DIG framework on page 4. So digestion, absorption, inflammation, immunology, and then the gut microbiome metabolites. And your ability to secrete pancreatic enzymes, your ability to break down your proteins looks really good. Now, your fecal fats are a little bit on the lower side, so we do want to make sure you have adequate fat intake, but this is not a digestive issue. This is just, let's make sure you have good intake. And then for the inflammation immunology, we can see that all of the inflammatory markers, all of the markers that speak to us about your immune system are in range, which is super exciting. And then for the gut microbiome metabolites, that's where we can make some improvements. That's where the variety in the colors, in the types of fibers and foods we eat is really going to make a difference. Now, this last marker, beta glucuronidase, that's more of an enzyme that deals with breaking down your complex carbs, but it can also impact detoxification. So believe it or not, if this marker is too high, it means that you have the ability to recirculate toxins, hormones, drugs, carcinogens, things the body was trying to get rid of. So with this specific enzyme, beta glucuronidase, we really want to make sure it's normal and not elevated.
Okay. It looks like I'm normal, just a little.
You are normal here. Exactly. Yeah,
Good.
you got it.
Good.
You look really good. And what really impacts this enzyme, because my enzyme, just personal story, because we're not TMIing it here, right? So I had a high beta glucuronidase, and I just said, oh, it's family history. I got, a long stream of cancers on my dad's side of the family. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. Let me try to adjust the diet. Let me try to do some things. And my marker, it came back down into normal range. It went from over 3,000 above the range to normal with just diet and lifestyle changes.
Wow. And I think that's like so important for a bigger message, which is we get told all the times, oh, it's genetics. And then you alter your lifestyle and the way you feel your body. And all of a sudden the genetics don't play as big of a role as you thought they did. Yeah.
It's your phenotype. It's what you do with your body, what you do with your environment, and it'll either make your genes talk loud or to quiet them down.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so it looks like the rest of it, for the sake of time too, is essentially more of the same. It's the details around where I score on very specific types of bacteria, where I'm out of range, right?
You got
And is and this is stuff I definitely do plan to work with someone who is capable of reading this specific test, because I think, I've already done the work, I've already done the stool work part. Now I want to really work with someone who can help me get my levels and my ranges to normal, right? Just like you said, even if I feel like I'm doing okay, I want to be great. I want to have great gut health. The last piece here is more of the parasites, and it looks like I'm all clear here.
Yes.
Is that normal, or do you see a lot of people come back with parasites?
So it depends on the season. So there's
Okay.
parasite seasons, and
Oh,
basically when the weather is warmer, we see more parasites because you're outdoor
interesting.
more, you're camping, or you're glamping in my case, or
Okay.
you're
Yeah.
fishing, or you're outside building mud pies or something like that. That's when we tend to see more parasites. And obviously the parasite season is going to be different depending on where you live. So somebody who lives in the Bahamas, their parasite season's all year round, right?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, but
Okay.
we do catch a fair amount of parasites.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. And then just to wrap this up, it looks like more parasites here, and then
Mhm.
just some commentary. But overall, it basically starts really high level and pretty easy to understand, and then it seems like just from someone who isn't very well educated on digestive testing, it becomes a little bit more like I wouldn't put this into chat gbt. I think that would really scare me. I'm going to work with someone who can help me, and I have seen a lot of social media where I'll stop sharing here. I've seen a lot on social media of like, get a stool test and then just put it in chat gpt. Can you explain why that is not a good call?
Do not do that.
Okay. Why?
Just period.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
right. The reason is because, and it's really funny. I'm about to record an Instagram post for Genova about this, but what AI does is it pulls information from the internet, but it pulls it from blogs, it pulls it
Mm.
from non-credible sources, but then it'll pull it from credible sources. And it cannot determine what is credible, what is not credible.
Mm,
So I entered in a sample, and also it's not HIPAA compliant, so you might not want to enter your personal information on there. Okay. So I entered a sample report onto Chat GPT, and it said this marker is elevated. And I'm like, no, it's not elevated. So it's not able to look at the reference range and the actual measurement and make a determination. I'm not sure if it's pulling reference ranges from other functional testing that's available on the online or what. But then I was like, okay, well, if it's pulling information from the web, let me go one step further. Let me tell chat based on the sample, or based using the sample report based on our support guide, now give me recommendations. And it straight up said, I have limitations. And I was like, well, there we go. Because it can't make a story. It cannot make sense of if this is high, if this is low, what does that mean?
Right.
It's not taking into consideration your supplements, your diagnosis, your symptoms. So just don't.
yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. You heard it here, not first,
Amen.
not last,
Yes.
but you heard it here, folks. I love that. Jen, I think for the sake of time, I think we should probably just stick with reviewing one.
Yeah.
If that's okay. And then we can always do a part two. But I think there's more questions we want to get into that aren't just based on the stool test. And so I think we want to do like, just to wrap it up a little bit more, if you can't get a stool test, right? If maybe financially that's not your moment for a stool test or for other reasons, what are some things that you can easily do other than the purple cabbage and the yellow carrots? What else can someone do to support their digestion?
So the way the body was designed, it was designed to eat under what's called parasympathetic state.
Mm.
So sympathetic, I'm running away from a tiger. Parasympathetic is more of that resting state where blood gets diverted to your internal organs to really help digest and absorb your foods.
Mhm.
So the first thing I would say is when you are getting ready to eat, you want to eat under a calming environment. Don't eat when you're in between patients or when you're driving or when you're running after your kids at a sports game. You want to eat under a calm environment. Number two, you should be chewing each bite about 20 times.
Mm,
Let that sink in.
mhm.
If you are chewing your food less than 20 times per bite, you're not breaking the foods down efficiently enough for your body to take full advantage of digesting and absorbing the nutrients that you're eating.
Mhm.
The other thing is Pay attention to your symptoms. Like if you have bloating or abnormal belching or gas, or if you're not having a bowel movement once a day that feels very fulfilling, then there might be something wrong and you might need to go see somebody to help you out and investigate what's going on, even considering a stool test. And I think those are kind of the main things, really what you put in your mouth, the way you eat, and especially as women, when we stress, we notice what? A lot of digestive issues. Because so stress, even in men, can impact your digestion absorption. So what techniques are you doing to help modify your stress levels? You might not be able to change your stress, but you can modify how you respond. So those are kind of the big things outside of the obvious. Don't eat fried foods, don't snack all night, don't eat your simple sugars. Outside of those things, those are some other suggestions I would make that is going to help improve your overall digestion and absorption situations.
Love that. I think the hardest thing the biggest barrier to entry is cost, right? I think a lot of times the challenge for people is, I don't want to spend the money on this. I know I need to get it done, but I don't want to pay for it, right? When someone gives you that type of feedback, what do you say to them, especially if they're dealing with a lot of digestive issues? Like, they might not think it's worth it, or and someone listening to this still might not be fully convinced. Can you kind of share a few things that you've seen in practice, or that you've seen people make transformations that is extremely convincing to someone who might be on the edge, or maybe doesn't want to spend money on that, but maybe they're spending money on new clothes?
Yeah, or the coffee every
day. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I have seen many cases where they come, like the client or the patient will say, I just don't feel well in my GI tract. I know something's not right, whatever. And they just list average issues like constipation, a little bit of bloating. And when we do their stool test, their inflammation markers come back really elevated. And I'm like, you need to go see a GI doc and get imaging. This might be a little bit more serious than what you're saying. There's been cases where people's immune systems have been really reactive, and we find out that, oh, you're reacting to, a food sensitivity, and we might do an elimination diet and their symptoms resolve. We see cases where clients come in and they're like, I'm low in iron and I don't understand, or I have osteoporosis, I don't get it. And when we look at a stool test, we see that their digestion is just completely in the gutters. We've seen so many cases like that where it's been literally life-changing for clients, where symptoms that they have started to normalize or say it's not that big of a deal really is that big of a deal, or there's really a lot we can do. And I think the part that's really discouraging is when people go see their docs, sometimes their docs might just write off their symptoms.
Yeah.
And they might not think it's really that impactful for their daily living. And with a stool test, if we can find out what that issue is, it can make a big change for just your daily life, your quality of life, which I just think is super important.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, that's what happened with Jill and myself is once we, started addressing our gut issues. And I mean, most people listening to this, unless you're new here, knows our stories. Like, we dealt with them for so long, and it really does impact your quality of life. It impacts your happiness. It impacts your social life. It impacts really all facets of your life if you just always feel uncomfortable, or if you're eating a meal and you're sprinting to the bathroom after because you just can't fully digest and absorb everything. And like you said, osteoporosis, there's so many symptoms and issues that are related to the gut. And like starting with a stool test like this can start to give you answers, whether it is the person who you get it from, you can start ordering it and you work with a practitioner and they can start helping you, or it is maybe something more intense that you might as well be proactive now while you're receiving this information. And I'm sure you're a huge advocate of that, is like,
Absolutely.
Get it done, do it. and save yourself years of issues, or getting deeper to the root of what could be going on with a symptom that might not be what you think is related to gut health.
Yep. Absolutely.
So yeah, you can tell we're super passionate about it. We
love
don't
it.
talk as much about gut health on this podcast anymore, even though it's called Gut Talk. But like you're explaining, it is the core of so many different things, especially your happiness and your confidence and your energy. So
I also
yeah,
think too that a lot of symptoms have just been so normalized
yes.
in and out of gut health, right? Whether it's bloating, whether it's farting, right? But even more, it's like painful periods, right? Is just like, it's the norm, or
Mhm.
acne and just going on an acne supplement instead of taking a stool test or getting additional testing done. Like, I think we've kind of lost the idea of what health actually looks like. And we've
Yeah.
kind of like shifted it in modern day society to fit the modern American diet, to fit the crazy lifestyles that we all live with our jobs and our families and our life. And we've kind of lost the plot a little bit when it comes to what's important, what health actually looks like, how key sleep and digestion and controlling stress within reason, how key they are to our actual health and longevity. I mean, that's why we're so motivated. Is like, I want to feel good now, and I want to feel good in 20 years, and I want to feel good in 40 years. Our grandpa, who's 96, he just had his hip replaced last week. And all he keeps telling me is like, I can't wait to be back on the golf course with you. Like,
He's
Jenna and
96.
both of our
96.
grandpas
Yeah.
are 96.
I
Like,
have
Jenna
a
and I,
95-year-old grandpa.
Do you?
I just got done mowing the lawn. And I'm like,
Exactly.
sit down.
I love it.
I want to know what he was doing for his gut microbiome.
Yeah.
I know,
It's
right?
crazy.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Eating
Yeah.
dirt.
Right. Exactly.
Literally. Yeah.
Seriously.
Do you have a
yeah, go ahead.
current hot take that you could leave us with within gut health? Like, whether it's something that you should be doing, something you shouldn't be doing. Like, is there any hot take you can leave us with?
I think there's so many different things, but I think the biggest thing that I want to just reiterate again is variety in your diet.
Mm.
So move back to your traditional ancestry diets. Move away from the highly processed foods. Move away from the highly fried foods, because there's a science to food that they're using to make food more addictive and to kind of change how our body perceives foods, which is actually not really that healthy for us.
Yeah.
So you really want to go back to the raw ingredients and then work your way from there.
I love it.
And that's coming from someone who has done, like you said, you love the research. So, like, if you guys are listening to this right now and this isn't, eye-opening, where she's telling us diet is so key, all the other parts, but variety, even like myself, and we didn't get to go over my stool test, but I don't know if you got a chance to look at it. I feel like I eat so much variety and my gut is still begging for more. So it's like, I feel like you can never do too much. Like it's always helpful to always, switch it up or get a different color carrot or whatever it is. So that's what I'm taking from this. Okay. So to end this, in terms of going and ordering a test from Genova Connect, can you explain that process real quick at the end for anyone who listened to this and now wants to go order one?
It's actually quite simple.
Cool.
You go onto the Genova Connect website. You find the stool test that you would like to order, or whatever test you would like to order. You add it to your cart. And should I tell them the special?
Yes.
Okay. And then in the promo section,
Woo!
enter in Gut Talk 10. So GUTTALK and the number 10.
Ooh.
And that'll qualify you for 10% off of your test.
Cool.
And you order the test, it gets shipped directly to you, and you go ahead and collect the sample per instructions. and then you ship the test back in the FedEx box that's already provided in that kit. And then when your results are released, you get notified. And then
So
if
easy.
needed, you schedule an appointment with a practitioner or just to help you out with the interpretation. It's quite
Cool.
simple.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Jill and I both did it, and it was very easy and a seamless process. Okay, lastly, plug yourself. Where can people find you? Anything coming up? Anything you want any of our listeners to know about you and what you're working on?
Okay, so in terms of social media, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me also on TikTok. And if you just type in my name, Dr. Lahnor, Lahnor, Powell, P as in Peter, Owell, you'll be able to find me.
Cool. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for explaining this test with us. We've
Yeah.
gotten such amazing insights from you. And perhaps we'll have you on again, hopefully in person, to talk
Yes.
about postpartum and prepartum and everything that you also specialize in, because you're amazing. So thank you.
you.
Thanks again.